Hi everyone, Ted Wyman here with another edition of On the Rocks, where we talk about curling in Canada. And today I am joined by two curlers who are very well known on the curling scene in this country, best known for their play in men's and women's play, but they have switched this year and are doing mixed doubles this time for this season. So, and I maybe more time going forward, but I am joined by Laura Walker and Kirk Muyres. Guys, how are you doing? Laura, you're in Edmonton. How's things out there?
Things are good. I have a new son now. He's almost 3 months old, plus my 2-year-old. So things are busy, but they've been really good. I've really been enjoying this season so far with Kirk, and a slight change of pace, and mom of two life. So things are really good here.
Yeah, and Kirk, maybe you can speak a bit to how different it is having a season like this where you're playing mixed doubles events and not going through that grind of the 4-player game, which usually involves a heck of a lot of travel, doesn't it?
Yeah, normally I think we'd be on the road for, 7 or 8 weekends already, grinding it out either on the men's tour or on the mixed doubles tour. And then in the middle, you're trying to get some practice in. And for me, it became an absolute grind. And what I found was I kind of lost some heart in the game. And I wasn't playing as good as I wanted to. I wasn't practicing as good as I wanted to. And I just needed to step away. And, this season I've been loving it. I've been watching curling. I've turned into a curling fan. I've been watching it on streams every weekend. I'm looking forward to the slam getting going here, and I can't wait to kind of just watch curling for the rest of the season. And then Laura and I, we can schedule in time to have training camps. We can schedule in time to take breaks. We can schedule in time to kind of lay out a season that's going to make us the best we can be. So it's exciting. It's exciting on the mixed doubles side, but it's also exciting just to kind of be a curling fan for a year.
Laura, how did you come to the decision to do this? Is it partly because of your family situation at home, or was there also a need to maybe take a step back from 4-player and just try to concentrate on something a little different?
It was a little bit of both. I think I started to feel, the grind a little bit more over the last couple of years than I had previously. And I'm sure that's largely in part to having a lot more going on at home than I would have before. But I kind of looked at my life and my curling life in particular, and I knew that I couldn't continue to do everything that I was doing. But the thought of quitting mixed doubles made me a lot more sad, I guess the word is, than the thought of quitting the women's game. And it just seemed like a perfect balance for me to be able to continue to play the game I love. And mixed doubles is a discipline that I really enjoy it. I've always loved it. Kirk and I have both always loved it. And having Kirk, eventually I think I got there a little sooner than he did, but having Kirk kind of eventually get to the same place that I was at with wanting to do this made a huge difference in my desire to do it as well, knowing that I had a teammate who was on the same page and could kind of put in that same time and effort into this discipline that I was.
So Kirk, how many events will you guys play in this season?
We've got scheduled in 8, and then hopefully the national we are in the national championship, and then hopefully the world championship. So could be 8 or 10 events by the end of it. And in the old world, that was a regular curling season, right? But in the last few years, the game has certainly changed a lot in terms of on the men's and women's side having to play a lot, and then mixing in a few mixed doubles events. So I think in the last couple of years, it's been, other than COVID aside, there's been 15 to 20 events a year. And so to have 8 to 10 a year, it's a perfect balance. And I think a healthy balance if we want to continue to get better. And, Laura and I's goal is to be Olympic gold medalists in 2026. If we want to do that, having that balance between competing and training and breaks, I think are vital for our success. And, everyone's different like that, but I think myself especially, I can't speak for Laura, but having those breaks to kind of recharge and get excited about the game again is very important. So that's kind of the idea we had going into the season and planning out our events and our training.
Laura, when you're out on the road for these events, are you seeing the same people all the time? And are there other teams like yourselves that, maybe are known more as the 4-player high level players that are now concentrating on mixed doubles, or maybe are you guys sort of groundbreakers in that area?
I would say in Canada, we are groundbreakers in that area. There are certainly teams who just play mixed doubles in Canada, but I wouldn't say there's many, if any, that kind of came from the men's and women's world the same way that we have. But there are certainly a lot of teams from around the world, in particular, mostly in Europe, who have made this their main focus for 5, 6, 10 years, some of them. So we do definitely see kind of the same old cats on tour that we'll see a lot more often now, with some of the bigger events here in Canada with the CBC Super Series. Now we'll see those Europeans come to Canada a lot more often, whereas previously all those events were in Europe. There was a lot of events happening in Europe, and all those European teams played against each other. So now we'll get the opportunity to play against them as well. So certainly there are, those dedicated mixed doubles teams in other parts of the world, but I would say maybe not so much here in Canada.
So Kirk, what did you make of the Olympics last year, the mixed doubles event? There was 10 teams in it, and Italy, the team from Italy went undefeated. They just soared through it. They were unbelievable. They won the gold medal. It was a huge deal for Italy, in a little known sport for that country. But it didn't seem like that was a team that had been together forever or anything like that. I think they maybe had first played together a year earlier. There's this, it's a question, I think, for some, whether you do, if you're going to have the most success by playing together all 4 years leading into the Olympics, or if you're just going to get your best teams together at the end. So where do you stand on that?
Well, I think the reality is, and we've seen that over the last few years, is good curlers can win in men's and women's, and good curlers can win in mixed doubles. So we've seen that a little bit, I think. But and I think the game will keep evolving over the next few years, where maybe that flash in the pan won't be able to be successful. But I think the reality is, in curling, at any moment in time, anyone could win, but the team that puts in the most work and the most effort over a long sustained period of time and continues to get better will have a better chance of winning. And that's really where we're kind of hanging our hat on. We realize that we could go into the Olympic trials in 2025 or whatever they decide to do there, and we may not win it just because we put in the work the last few years. But we're going to give ourselves the best chance we can going into that, hopefully going to go to the Olympics. And hopefully when we do play a team that hasn't played together and hasn't learned the nuances of the game and hasn't learned the nuances of their partner, we're going to have a leg up on that. And that's really kind of where we're focusing on that. But I think at the end of the day, in 2026, we could see the same thing again. A team that just gets thrown together before the Olympic trials in Canada could go to the Olympics, could win the Olympic gold medal. Because at the end of the day, it's just curling. And if you get hot at the right time, great things can happen. And watching that Italian team at the Olympics, they were a powerhouse. I think most teams that come together and play like Laura and I are trying to do over the next 4 years, try to do what they did, week in, week out. So it was fun watching them. Certainly, wished our country could have fared better, but that's curling, and sometimes it goes your way and sometimes it doesn't. And that's just the reality of it.
It's interesting what Kirk says, Laura, because I've talked to quite a few men's players and women's players this year. And one of the things that's a strong theme with them is that they want to have their teams closer together so that they can actually concentrate on practicing more than just playing. I think people look at Brad Gushu's team and say, yeah, that team practices a lot. I think you're pretty familiar with that team, Laura, right? And Mark Kennedy told me that was a big reason why they set up the team with Brett Gallant, Ben Hebert, and Brendan Botcher, so that they could really concentrate on practicing. So that sounds like a similar kind of philosophy that you guys are taking. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. That was also factored into my decision not to play women's, was that I felt like to be the best team in the world and compete with the best of the world, we being any potential women's team would have to be closer together, practicing more, spending more time on kind of day-to-day training than just competing. And I didn't really find a situation where that was possible. There's a lot of really great curlers in this country, and unfortunately a lot of us are very spread out from each other. Whereas Kirk and I kind of we both are in the same career where we both have flexibility, where we can, practice on a Wednesday, Thursday, if that's what works out in our world. And it makes a huge difference to not have to spend every single weekend that you have off training, because that became a grind in and of itself. And then you're not focused at your training camps, you're not getting the most out of them. Whereas we are able, we're not in the same place right now, but our lifestyles allow us to come together. Only having to coordinate that with 2 people is a lot easier too than it is with 4 people. So it's a breath of fresh air to be able to actually spend time on training and focus training and spending time together without also overloading your schedule. So we're definitely in that boat, and I think it's going to be an advantage for the 2 of us.
Yeah, just to be clear, Laura's in Edmonton, Kirk's in Ottawa, so you're not exactly right next door to each other, but you obviously find times that you can get together in one place or the other, I assume, and then and you're putting in the practice time despite that distance.
Yeah, we're getting together before a lot of our events, so we'll build training camps into kind of like a pre-event. Kirk is coming out here next week for a few days for us to be able to spend that time together. So again, just having to fly one person or have one person drive to meet or whatever is a lot easier, and we both have lifestyles that allow us to do that. So it's been great so far.
Kirk, where do you see mixed doubles going? Is there going to be a lot of evolution of the game? You did mention that a little earlier. I know when I was at the Olympics last year and talking to some of the executives, they really were, pretty bullish on making more rule changes, timing by end, probably something along the lines of the shootout, like we saw them test out recently at an event here in men's and women's play. What do you think is going to happen in the mixed doubles version of the game?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'd be similar to that. Like, I think the mixed doubles game and the men's and women's game are so different. And, I watched the Mark Kennedy podcast you had on, and he's saying, let the game breathe. And I think I agree with that on the men's and women's side. But on the mixed doubles side, I think have at her. It's such a different sport. We're trying to attract different people into watching it. The game is packed into an hour and a half. Timing per end works really good because of the fast pace of the mixed doubles game. Like, let's get it going. Let's keep it going, keep it running. I think that's great for the mixed doubles sport. So, the powers that be, I think have at her. Make some changes, make it more exciting for kind of that next generation coming up. Nowadays, for people to sit down and watch a 4-hour sporting event, that's a tough thing to do for a lot of people. But to sit down to watch an hour and a half curling game where there's rocks placed before the end starts and there's action the whole end, that gets pretty exciting. When in the first end, fourth end, seventh end, eighth end, they might be running out of time. That gets pretty exciting. A shootout to win the Olympic gold medal, that gets pretty exciting. So I'm all in for any changes that might be coming down the pipe. But one thing I do say to the powers that be is I think sometimes the mixed doubles seems to be getting a lot of lip service, that they want to grow the game and they want to make it more exciting and they want to do this and that. And I just hope that the powers that be make that commitment and actually do it and put their power behind it, their money behind it to grow it. Because I think there's a huge opportunity in it. A man and woman playing together is awesome. The quickness of it, like I mentioned, is awesome. And I think there's a huge opportunity in it. We just need, the people at Curling Canada and the people at the World Curling Federation to really truly get behind it and work to grow it. If they put their resources behind it, I mean, the sky's the limit for the sport. And hoping that, the players and past players don't necessarily have to prop up the tour, I guess you could call it, or the pro tour, like they have been doing this year to get it off the ground. But I hope Curling Canada and World Curling Federation get in there and start supporting it as well and growing it on the TV level and the world level.
Laura, how much do you think the pandemic set back mixed doubles in this country? Because as we know, they had to select a team for the Olympics. You didn't get to have Olympic trials. You don't get that exposure to the curling fans, but you also don't get that opportunity to compete, in that situation. And I'm guessing that the sport is going to need to do some recovering since that. Is that something fair?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Olympic trials is obviously only one team can go to the Olympics, but the Olympic trials was an opportunity for many of the kind of promising mixed doubles teams in this country to compete in that kind of environment when there's just not that same opportunity usually in mixed doubles to compete under that kind of pressure. In men's and women's, with the Scotties and the Brier and all the slams now, like there are frequent opportunities to play under some big pressure in those big events, and that doesn't really exist in mixed doubles. And I think the trials would have been really telling to a lot of teams as to what teams are going to work long term when you get yourself into those situations, what those teams might necessarily need to figure out between the two of them in order to have long-term success. Like those are the things that you can't figure out until you're in that situation, and that might have been what happened or what happens to some teams when they do get to those big events. When we talked about, two good curlers can win at mixed doubles, but when you just put two good curlers together who get put under extreme pressure and don't really know each other, don't know those things, like that's where we might see the cracks. And the trials was a big opportunity to figure those cracks out that we now don't have, and we might have to figure out 4 years down the road. So that's another reason for Kirk and I kind of doing this. We get to figure that out along the way so that when we get to those situations, like we know exactly how to handle each other. We know exactly what our tendencies are. We know exactly what we need to do. And that's something that a lot of teams won't be able to say.
So, Kirk, it sounds like you might have a future as an analyst in this sport. You're enjoying being a fan, but Laura, how about you? Are you missing it? Like when you see these big events on TV, are you saying, boy, I wish I was in there competing, or are you happy to be in your, bit of
I am, yeah, I am happy. I would say if I wasn't playing mixed doubles, I might miss it a little bit more, but because I'm just really enjoying this so far. I don't really find myself missing it. I don't find myself missing, leaving on Sunday for a slam and not coming home until Sunday, and having all credit to the slams. They've done amazing things for the sport, but it's no fun as a player to go and sit and play one game a day and have to be away from home and family and work for a week at a time to go do that. Like we have a very different schedule. All of that I'm really enjoying. Like Kirk said, I'm enjoying watching it. I'm enjoying just kind of sitting back. Like at this point, I have no regrets. You can ask me again next year, but right now I'm quite happy.
And one more question for you. I was thinking about this a bit. What was it like when Jeff and the team were at the Olympics for you, when you weren't able to be there because of the restrictions and everything? Was that a great experience to be able to watch it, or did it leave you feeling like you missed out on something?
I would say I wish I could have been there. I do feel like the families got to or had to miss out on something that would have been pretty exciting, but I think I felt more for the team, not really getting to experience the Olympics to the fullest and having to experience an Olympics under lockdown. That was disappointing for me, just kind of feeling on his behalf. I wish that he could have experienced something different. And I wish that, we could have been there to celebrate a medal, like all of those things. So it was certainly difficult to be home, but at the same time, they got to focus exclusively on curling and brought our country home a medal and did some amazing things. So tough to ever say that, it's upsetting to be in an Olympics. That's not the case, but I wish that they could have had a different experience.
Yeah. And Kirk, the last word goes to you. Thank you very much, Laura, by the way. What's next for you guys? What's coming up in the near future?
Yeah, you betcha. We got a training camp next week in Edmonton. It's obviously a lot easier for me to make the trek out to Edmonton than it is for Laura to come to Ottawa with two babies. And I really don't have much to take care of other than myself, which I don't do that well, I must admit. But so it's a lot easier for me to go to Edmonton. So I head to Edmonton for a training camp next week with Laura. And then the week after that, we're in Saskatoon for the second of 5 Super Series events that are going to be on CBC and CBC Gem. And so we're excited for that. And like I said, that's the exciting part of all this. Laura and I love playing together. We love competing. We love doing that. But after a couple of weeks off, man, you're raring to go again. So we're excited to go play that event. And I think we always play a little better when we're excited to be there.
Yeah, and I think you did touch on it before, but that Super Series is obviously pretty key to growing this game, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say it's an absolute must to grow the mixed doubles game. We need a best on best competition. We need a professional like or elite like tour, and we need TV companies and big sponsors behind it to grow it. And we're getting that. Wayne Tuck and Jay Allen are doing a great job putting that all together, and CBC is behind it, supporting it, and it's great to see that. And hopefully we can continue to grow it and bring in more teams from around the world to test the Canadian teams and continue to get us better.
Yeah, well, baby steps, I guess, but great to see that you guys are a part of it and hopefully helping to grow it, and hopefully for yourselves working towards an appearance in the Olympics. I thank you so much for joining me here on the Rocks today. She's Laura Walker. He is Kirk Muyres. They're a mixed doubles curling team. I'm Ted Wyman, and you've been watching On the Rocks.